Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Mike Rowe, the product manager at HCLSoftware. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Great to be talking with you. A lot to get into here. Let's start with just how agencies are seeing a higher expectation for customer experience from the public. A lot going on there, and we've seen this evolve over the past couple of years. What do you see as some of the key components of excellent customer experience, and in what ways do you see federal agencies meeting those customers where they are?
Really, I think it's access to information, but bringing the information to the audience, right? You want to make sure that you've got targeted, relevant, kind of personalized experiences. Know something about the folks that are using the experience and deliver that to them. But it's not all about just the content, the information. I mean, you've got to also intermingle the applications and relevant processes. I mean, after all, the customers are there for a reason. So to whatever extent you can target that, it's all the better.
Okay, and of course, agencies have a lot of data to keep an eye on when it comes to customer experience and making sure that that's at a level that's acceptable for the public. What are the metrics that are key here, the metrics that matter most when it comes to tracking these CX improvements across government?
Well, I mean, honestly, I would think the best metrics kind of correspond with those that you would traditionally associate with a marketing funnel. For years, marketers have known how to nurture these relationships, and we can take a cue from them. Making sure you're capturing metrics like hover and dwell time, what objects that folks are looking at, and the things that would make you think, okay, well, they're spending some of their attention on this content or that application, pension Zoom, those types of things. Really, if you can capture those, you can use that to kind of make sure that you're continuing to personalize moving forward.
Yeah, and to your point about personalization and making sure that these experiences are tailored to the people who are signing up for these services, looking for these experiences. How is user feedback enabling the kind of human-centered design that we're seeing across government? Because I think what we're seeing, generally speaking, is that agencies are not, they're taking the guesswork out of this. They're not figuring out what might our customers want. They're trying to incorporate that feedback into the design.
I think it starts with you really have to know who you're building these experiences for. Spending a lot of time up front, making sure that you've understood, defined the personas, uncover the motivations of the folks that are going to be using the experience is immensely important, so that you can understand how to best digitize a process.
Yeah, and can you just go into a little bit more detail about the personas, how agencies can go about crafting those and really understand at a granular level, who their customers are and what they need to successfully enroll in those benefits?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think it starts with, go to the front lines and discover, how is it that those customers are actually consuming, the digital experience or the process, right? In some cases, even going to, the folks at a call center or help desk and say, what's a traditional interaction look like? It's very rare to, achieve kind of the perfect experience right out of the gate. I think the key is really to ensure that you are capturing the metrics, you're capturing the analytics necessary so that you can measure and remediate the designs and the application functionality in a very agile manner.
And of course, we're talking about kind of the pain points for people who already know about the services and are trying to sign up for them. But obviously, that customer journey extends before that. In a lot of cases, it's part of the battle is just getting customers aware of the services that are out there. The federal programs that are out there can be a real tree falls in a forest type scenario. If people who are eligible and need these services don't know about them, does it benefit anyone if these programs exist? To that point, Mike, can you tell me a little bit more about how agencies are trying to do some journey mapping, understanding how customers find and navigate these services, or more importantly, when they don't find or don't navigate these services?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and honestly, that kind of goes back to the importance of knowing the audience and targeting. But ultimately, the magic with the journey mapping is not necessarily in a visualization by itself of what is the customer's journey look like. Ultimately, it is when you take that and then layer in the analytics so that you can test and measure and make those remediations to continually enhance. With the right tools and the right data, this can even be automated to some very large extent.
All right. And of course, we can't talk about customer experience without talking about the experience of the frontline federal employees who are delivering those experiences. Those are, of course, inextricably linked. And ultimately, agencies need to give those employees the tools they need to succeed. So, what are some of the ways that agencies can improve that employee experience and, again, give them the tools that they need to deliver that better customer experience?
Yeah, honestly, the employee experience is probably at least as important as the customer experience because ultimately, the employees are the front lines. When you move beyond the digital and get into the more conversational person-to-person touch points, I've always kind of noted that there's really not much difference between an employee experience and a customer, partner, or citizen experience for that matter. In the end, what we're trying to do is to attract, nurture, grow relationships with these audiences. So why should we be using any different tools for that? Um, Ultimately to aid in that employee experience, or rather to aid in the customer experience, we can provide a very excellent, targeted, and personalized contextual kind of information to the employee. We can, to do this, we can probably leverage existing or traditionally associated tools with marketing. Integrate back-end data that's relevant to aid the employee with the interactions they might have with the customer, and make sure that all of that and all of the necessary integrations are available in the digital tool so that the employee can go about doing their job.
We have, of course, seen a lot of federal services move increasingly online, meeting those customers where they are, making these things mobile friendly. But, an undercurrent to all these things, a foundation to all these things is accessibility, making sure that these are services that people of all abilities can access and take advantage of. Given all of that, Mike, what would you make of the accessibility of most federal websites? What is the current state of that? And what do agencies ultimately need to do to improve the accessibility of those online experiences?
Yeah, this is accessibility is an interesting challenge, right? I would say traditionally most digital touch points, digital interactions are kind of below par there. The reasons for that, it's not necessarily nefarious. Ultimately, it comes down to a lack of tooling, I think, a lot of times. There's controls that can be added into the publication workflows. There's audit processes that we should make sure to include accessibility, not only in the in measurement and auditing, with various tools, but also build it into the authoring and composition tooling, and ultimately make sure that you're taking into account when you're building out a practitioner experience, that is the author's experience, the workflow stages that are available to validate accessibility, the tooling at their fingertips throughout the authoring and curation process so that it can be done, as part of the process, so that it's just built into the daily activities of those authors and practitioners.
Well, Mike, we've been speaking to a lot of agencies that have been leading on this customer experience stuff, but of course, for every agency that is a leader on this, there's going to be some agencies that are a little bit earlier on in their journey figuring this out, are a little bit earlier on in that learning curve. What would you tell those agencies who are just starting out on this? What are the most important first steps to getting a better customer experience off the ground?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think it's an afterthought a lot of times, how we build that practitioner experience I was just talking about. Ultimately, we've discussed a few, right? Accessibility is huge because it's often overlooked. Analytics, though, I think the one thing that can be done up front to make sure that you have I guess, the data and the tools in place so that you can build out that experience. It comes, up front. You've got to pay attention early on, at the basically the front of the project, to how is it that I can make sure that throughout the course of building the experience, the authors, the practitioners have access to, or have all of the tagging capabilities. The information architecture is there, and the metrics that need to be captured are put in place so that you can craft that target experience. I think then beyond that, just paying attention to the authoring interface, the customize for the audience. That is to say, a lot of folks that might be contributing with the digital experience are maybe less technical, and you want to provide them with a guided kind of authoring experience versus, those that might live and breathe content management, as an example. They might not, they might need access to additional tools, right? So kind of customize the authoring experiences is something that's more often than not overlooked. If you are spending all of this time and effort to build out an excellent customer experience, the very start of that needs to be an excellent kind of practitioner experience.
All right. Well, Mike, I think we've covered a ton of ground here. Is there anything that you want to leave our audience with as like a final note summing up everything that we've been talking about, or any key takeaways you want our audience to take away from this conversation?
Well, I think ultimately the thing I would leave you with is, in my experience, it's best to look at all of these experiences as if it's for a customer. I think a lot of times we're overlooking the fact that, and maybe it's because customers are often associated with revenue and so on. But ultimately, if you're providing an excellent customer experience, that starts with the employee experience. That starts with how is it that we're interacting with our partners, how we are interacting, interagency and so on. So everybody's a customer, I think, is probably the best way to sum it up. So if we just, go to each of the new projects that we might be building these experiences for, I think that's the best way to look at it. The customer is whoever is using this site.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank again today's guest, Mike Rowe, the product manager at HCLSoftware. I'm your moderator, Jory Heckman, and you're watching Federal News Network. Now, let me send you back to the studio for more on the CX Exchange.